Hello! Welcome to this week's video. So for this week I am doing a book review, and I had initially planned to do a book review for a different book, but I recently finished this one. So I had to talk about it. And I had initially planned to do this book review a few days ago, which was Labor Day, on the holiday that I had off from work. Then I got a cold, and I'm still a little bit getting over that, so if I randomly have a coughing fit in the middle of this thing, that's why. So, what book are we here to talk about today? Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides? Michaelides? Michaelinas? You know those TV dinners, the commercial? Hey, Michaelinas. I'm on cold medication, so excuse me. Yeah, so The Silent Patient. And let me warn you now, this will be spoilery, because I don't know how to talk about this book without spoiling what makes it so insane, in my opinion. So, what is this book about? I will read the back blurb for you. Alicia, I'm not sure how, I've seen it pronounced sort of both ways, but I think Alicia usually has an E in it, and this doesn't. Or is it the other way around? Because Alicia Keys is spelled this way, A-L-I-C-I-A, so I think it's Alicia. So I'm going to amend that. I think it's Alicia. Alicia Berenson's life is seemingly perfect, until one night when her husband Gabriel returns home late from work and Alicia shoots him 5 times in the face, and then never speaks another word. When I read that blurb, I immediately had the Chicago song, He Had It Coming. He had it coming. He had it coming. He only had himself to blame. Turns out I was right. Alicia's refusal to talk or give any kind of explanation turns a domestic tragedy into a mystery that captures the public imagination. And she, the silent patient, is hidden away from the tabloids at the Grove, a secure psychiatric unit in North London. Criminal psychotherapist Theo Faber, Theo, is captivated by Alicia's story and jumps at the opportunity to work with her. His determination to get her to talk and unravel the mystery of why she shot her husband will take him down a path more unexpected and more terrifying than he ever imagined. So, the book starts right away with the admission that she killed her husband. So we know, or we assume, that she killed her husband. Or at least I assumed. And so she's in the psychiatric place, the Grove, and Theo Faber, the psychotherapist, decides that he wants to help her. He wants to help her, and he thinks that he can be the one to bring her out of her sort of catatonic state. Because between being, I guess, the PTSD from shooting one's husband, plus the insane amount of medications that she is on, even if she wanted to, she couldn't really talk. So there's the mystery of like why she shot her husband, if she shot her husband at this point, because at this point I wasn't sure, because they seemingly had a good marriage. Alicia is an artist, and I think he was a photographer of some sort, and Theo's the psychotherapist, and he's married to a woman named Kathy, who is an actress. So Theo sort of has this confidence that he can break through to Alicia because he feels he understands trauma, because he himself was a very traumatized boy. He grew up in a very abusive sort of household. His father was a piece of shit. So he applies for a job at the Grove. And leaves this like crazy, really good position to come to the Grove, which is, I think, in a state of on the way to being closed down. And so there's sort of that, like he's that sure that he could help her. So the sort of initial meetings don't really go well, like, and the head guy who sort of runs the Grove gives Theo, I think, like a couple of weeks to try and get through to this comatose woman, not comatose, but catatonic woman. So Theo, between like meeting with her and he decides that he wants to know more about sort of her story. So he starts kind of interviewing / investigating all the sort of people around her. There's the guy who owns her, who is sort of like her art gallery manager guy, who also happens to be a friend of hers. There's the her brother-in-law. The art gallery guy is Jean Felix, something like that. The brother-in-law is Max, who is just a piece of shit, who, like, just instantly when Theo goes to meet him, he's like, oh, that bitch who killed my brother and blah blah blah, which, okay, understandably, if somebody killed my sibling, I guess I wouldn't be too fond of them either. But it was just his, like, he was convinced that she did it, and I don't know, like, at this point, like I said, I wasn't, and I was thinking that it might have been one of these people that he was interviewing, because Jean Felix was not a great person either. He just kind of seemed a little too, I guess, obsessed with sort of her paintings, and I don't know, he just struck me as kind of weird. Max I didn't like, and there was another guy, her cousin, Paul. So while he's like sort of going around interviewing all these people, Alicia kind of, like, he starts to kind of form a connection with her, and gradually she starts to respond a little bit more to him. And, you know, he even, like, you know, she's an artist, why don't we, like, let her paint, and maybe that'll, you know, help her sort of kind of come out of her catatonia, catatonia, help her kind of respond. So, like I said, Alicia's a painter, and she is, as far as we know, happily married to this Gabriel. And one of the paintings she does of him that I think Theo goes to see is this picture of Jesus on the cross, but instead of Jesus, it's Gabriel's face. She puts Gabriel's face as if it's Gabriel the one being crucified. Interesting. And I think sort of, I'm not sure like when it occurs, but I think it's either like, I think it's shortly after she shoots her husband. She does this one painting. And it's based on this Greek myth. And the way the myth goes is something along the lines of, if one of the gods asks the man to sacrifice himself, but then the wife sacrifices herself instead for him. And Alicia sort of, and then the god, I guess, because she sacrificed herself for the man that she loves, the god decides to bring her back to life. But when he brings her back to life, she cannot / does not speak. So there's sort of connection there with her, the woman in the painting, and Alicia not speaking. So that is the only thing that, like, I think she does after she shoots her husband. He doesn't speak, but she draws that painting. Okie dokie. So this is going on, and Theo, like I said, Theo is married to a woman named Kathy, who's an actress. And he discovers that Kathy is having an affair. But because he loves his wife so much, he can't bring himself to confront her about it. Which, considering you're a therapist, I would think, you know, that's sort of what your kind of job is to help people confront sort of their traumas. But he can't. He can't because he loves his wife so much he doesn't want her to leave him. He doesn't want to leave her. So he just sort of goes along with this sort of, with his marriage, and is just sort of like, I know what you're doing. He doesn't confront her about it. He's just sort of like keeping it to himself and just going about his day to day, living his life with his cheating wife. But he's obsessed with the fact that she's cheating. So he starts stalking her because for some masochistic reason, he wants to catch her. I'm thinking like, okay, he wants to catch her in the act so that way she has no way of denying the emails that he saw that proved to him that she was cheating. Like, if he catches her in the act, then he can confront her and be like, see, you can't deny because I just saw you. That's not what happens. So it even gets to the point where he actually sees them in the woods having the sex. The sex is being had right there, in front of his face. He's hidden. They don't see him. But they're having the sex. And still, Theo does not confront his wife. And I'm like, dude, okay, what is your plan here? Are you just gonna live the rest of your life with this cheating whore, pretending that you don't know that she's cheating on you? No. He decides that he's going to follow her husband. Oh, not her husband, her lover. And I'm like, okay, dude. Even your own therapist, because, oh yes, Theo has a therapist. His therapist's name is Ruth. Ruth is a lovely woman who tries to give Theo the sound advice of, oh, your wife is cheating on you, maybe you should leave her. Maybe the most healthy thing for you to do is leave her. Theo was like, I hear what you're saying. Instead, I'm going to start stalking her lover. So, yeah. So at this point, I was like, oh, this dude, he's going about this the hella wrong way. But okay. Theo is still investigating, like, and I'm thinking in my head, like, I don't think psychotherapists do this kind of thing, do they? I mean, he's just supposed to be there to treat Alicia. But instead, he's out here like Poirot, trying to solve a murder. And it was just a little odd, but okay. I figured like maybe that was for like the reader to maybe think, oh, maybe she didn't do it. Because at this point, there's a lot of people who could have killed Gabriel. Because you find out that Max, for all his protesting that Alicia is the bitch that killed my brother, blah, 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 apparently there was a insurance policy, I think, a life insurance policy, and I think it was, for some reason, Gabriel made him the beneficiary and not his wife, which I thought was weird. But I also thought, okay, maybe Max is pushing this whole, oh, this bitch killed my wife and blah, 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 as a sort of diversion to take Theo's eyes off of him as a potential suspect. That maybe he killed Gabriel for the money, for the life insurance policy. Then we have Jean-Felix, who's Alicia is trying to sort of distance herself from, and we learn this sort of as Theo is reading her diary. Because he's a little too clingy to Alicia, but not in the way of like he doesn't, he's sort of obsessed with her like as an artist and how she could make him famous as like an art gallery owner guy, and to be the one to like house her paintings. And so Alicia's sort of getting this sort of ick feeling from him, so she's kind of starting to pull away. And Jean-Felix doesn't like this because he and Alicia had, I guess, been friends since college. So, and I think the cousin Paul was in like debt to, I think he had like a gambling problem, and so Alicia loaned him money, but either like it wasn't enough, or like Alicia was like telling him that she wasn't going to give him any more money. So you basically have these three suspects who, like, I wasn't sure which one of them did it, but I was leaning towards either Max or Jean-Felix. Because Jean-Felix, or however the hell you pronounce his name, did not like the fact that Alicia didn't want to put her paintings, like, she wanted to sort of go somewhere else and sort of not go with him and his art gallery. So he definitely wouldn't have liked that. Max was a pervert who I don't know if he actually went so far as to rape her. I don't think he did, but he did molest her. He like kissed her against her will, and Alicia, and was just always coming on to her, and she was threatening to tell Gabriel. And then Alicia starts seeing this guy following her. So I'm thinking it's either Max or Jean-Felix. I didn't really think of Paul because like he was sort of a weak sort of character in my mind, but yeah, like I didn't think he would sort of go so far as to stalk Alicia and then kill her husband. Like he didn't strike me as the type to be capable of that. I was thinking it was either Max or it was Jean-Felix. So Alicia notices that this guy is following her. She tells her husband. He does not believe her because Alicia has had sort of mental kind of issues. Again, like she's had like a lot of trauma in her past. From childhood, her mother killed herself and almost killed Alicia because she was in the car with her. And then there's the added trauma of Alicia overhearing her father in his grief saying, "Why did it have to be my wife? Why couldn't it have been Alicia that died?" Her father, I don't care how in the depths of fucking grief you are. You are a piece of utter garbage if you willingly say, "Why couldn't it have been really anybody. Why couldn't it have been this person rather than my wife? But especially your own child. Alicia's 10 when she hears this. So already, that's when I think the first crack happens. The first little bit of cheese slides off Alicia's cracker. Then, her father kills himself. So, needless to say, Alicia doesn't have the greatest upbringing. Alicia has to go and live with her annoying, horrible aunt who hates her. And the feeling is mutual. And so Alicia has been dealing with a lot of sort of mental issues into adulthood. And she's had certain episodes during her marriage with Gabriel. So Gabriel does not believe that anybody is following Alicia. He thinks that she is being delusional and having one of her episodes. So he suggests that she go see a shrink named Dr. Christian. I think his name is Christian West. Now, it turns out that Dr. Christian West, he agrees to see Alicia, but not in a professional capacity. Sort of under the table, I guess. So it's unethical, kind of what he's doing. And turns out that Christian and Theo actually have a connection, because I think they were in either college or I think they were in college together, and they did not and do not get along. So there's a little sort of connection there. So yeah. So we have Alicia seeing somebody, some masked man stalking her. Or like showing up sort of like outside of the house. We have Theo dealing with his cheating ass wife, and not confronting her. And so, and we have Alicia in the Grove, when Theo allows her to have paints and canvas and all that to paint. She paints a picture. The picture is of her and Theo, and the Grove's on fire. And Theo is carrying her in the fire. And Theo says he can't tell if he's rescuing her or about to throw her into the fire, into the flames. So, creepy ass painting. So he reads the diary, and gradually Alicia does start speaking to him. And she decides that she's going to tell him what happened the night that she shot her husband. So she tells him the story that this man came in, this man who had been, the man who she'd seen stalking the house and her, broke into the house, tied her up, and then shot her husband. And Theo basically says, like, he doesn't say this to her, but as the narrator, he says, it was an insane, incredible story, if you believed it. And then he says, I didn't. Not one word. So I'm like, okay. Like, why? Why didn't he believe it? But going back to Theo and his cheating ass wife. Again, he's not confronting her. He decides instead that, again, he's going to start following her lover. And then there's even a point where he decides he's going to kill her lover. At this point, like, he actually, like, grabs a rock and is going to, he's behind the lover and is going to bash his brains in. But, luckily for the lover, somebody comes along. A witness. So, obviously Theo can't kill him right then. It'll have to be postponed. And it's at this point where I'm like, oh, this guy should not be a shrink. This guy is clearly unstable. I'm scared for Alicia now. Because I don't think this man should be treating her. Oh, oh, y'all. So, Theo decides that he is going to come up with a different plan. He's not going to confront his wife. He's not, as yet, going to confront the lover. No. He's going to tell the lover's wife. Because, oh yes, turns out Kathy's not the only one who's cheating. Loverboy is cheating. Loverboy is married. So Theo, well, I think at that point, I don't think Theo knows that, like, if it's his wife or his girlfriend. But Theo knows that this man is clearly in a relationship. He is living with a woman. So Theo decides he's going to tell the woman what her lover/husband is up to. So he goes to the house and he's standing outside the window. Then I saw the back door opening. I looked for somewhere to hide. I noticed the little summer house across the grass. I raced silently across the lawn and slipped inside. I stood there for a second, catching my breath. My heart was pounding. Had she seen me? I heard her footsteps approaching. Too late to back out now. I reached into my back pocket and took out the black balaclava I'd bought. I pulled it over my head and put on a pair of gloves. She walked in. She was on the phone. Okay, darling, I'll see you at 8. Yes, I love you too. She ended the call and switched on an electric fan. She stood in front of the fan, her hair blowing in the breeze. She picked up a paintbrush and approached a canvas on an easel. She stood with her back to me. Then she caught sight of my reflection in the window. I think she saw my knife first. She stiffened and slowly turned around. Her eyes were wide with fear. We stared at each other in silence. And the next sentence changes everything. Changes this entire motherfucking book. This was the first time I came face to face with Alicia Berenson. Sir! Sir! What the ha? O que é? O que é que está acontecendo? I need explains. So, at this point, my brain broke. It broke. And I had to say, my first instinct, my second emotion, because my first emotion was, o quê? What? My second emotion was anger. Because I didn't like the fact that this man, who I'd been following throughout this book, let me get to that, sort of, because, okay. My first emotion was shock. And then I was just confused. So I was sort of, as you continue to read, it becomes clear that everything dealing with Kathy and the cheating and the following and the stalking is a different timeline to Theo at the Grove with Alicia doing his little shrink / detective work. And then this book veers into banana sauce. Not bad banana sauce. Do not get me wrong. But banana sauce. Because once I realized that we were dealing with two different timelines, I sort of found my footing again. And then I lost it again. Because, okay. Because, like I said, I don't know if I mentioned, she'd been, after she shot Gabriel, she'd been arrested, blah, 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 put in the institution, and she hadn't said anything for 6 years. I don't know if I'd said anything about that, but yeah, she'd been in a catatonic, over-medicated state for 6 years. So I didn't realize that we were talking 6 years in the past, and the present was 6 years later. So all the stuff with Theo finding out Kathy was cheating, stalking her, and then stalking the lover, who turns out is Gabriel. So, yeah, because he went to the house, came face to face with Alicia, who he figures was this Gabriel's either wife or lover. So that's how you figure out, oh, Gabriel is a cheating piece of shit too. So we have the two timelines now. And we're sort of going back and forth, continuing to go back and forth. In the past, we have Theo. Oh, Theo. Oh, Theo. So he breaks into the house, and he decides that he's going to tie up Alicia, because he's decided now that he's not going to he's not going to kill anybody. Maybe like he's had like a little sort of smidge of sanity or something in that moment, but not really, because his plan is still wackadoo. He's going to tie up Alicia, and then Gabriel is going to come home, and he's going to, I think maybe like threaten Alicia. I think the plan was to get Gabriel to confess that he's been cheating. And he's going to make Gabriel, yeah, he's going to like not kill Alicia, but threaten Gabriel that he's going to kill Alicia if he doesn't come clean about his affair. So Gabriel comes home and sees Alicia tied up. And then Theo ties up Gabriel as well. And I'm trying to get this wackadoo plan straight in my brain. Basically tells Alicia that Gabriel has been cheating on her with his own wife, with Theo's wife. Theo says, I was going to kill you, but Alicia pleaded for your life because she loves you. So I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to give you a choice. Oh, Alicia, how much do you think Gabriel loves you? Let's see, shall we? So, Gabriel, I'm going to give you a choice. Either I kill you or I kill your wife. I'm going to count down from 10. And then you have to make a choice. Either you choose, or I think it was either you choose or I kill both of you. it's Alicia is the one who's saying, don't do it, don't say anything, he's gonna kill us both, you know, just, you know, I know that you love me, you don't have to do this, you know, just, but Gabriel's not saying anything. And then Alicia's like, just, you know, Gabriel, just tell him, yeesh. Yeah, just tell him you love me. Yeah, yeah. Gabriel, say you love me. And Theo is like counting down, and Gabriel's not saying anything. And then Gabriel spoke. Theo is down to 2. I didn't recognize his voice at first. Such a tiny voice, so far away. A little boy's voice. A small child with the power of life and death at his fingertips. And what Gabriel says is, I don't want to die. This motherfucker. And then there's just silence. You see, Alicia? I knew Gabriel was a coward. Locking my wife behind my back, he destroyed the only happiness I ever had. Theo leaned forward right in my face. I'm sorry to do this, but quite frankly, now you know the truth. You're better off dead. So, he's talking to Alicia and saying, knowing, basically kind of saying how kind of Theo kind of feels as well, knowing that like Kathy is cheating on him. Theo kind of wishes he himself was dead. So he's kind of transferring that onto Alicia and being like, now you know what a cheating bastard you're married to. You're better off dead than having to deal with this knowledge. So then you have Gabriel behind her going, don't shoot, don't shoot. He's screaming like, don't shoot, like for Theo not to shoot Alicia. And then there's the sound of the gunshot going off. But Theo doesn't shoot Alicia. He just shoots into the ceiling. Like, Gabriel is like, you know, horrified, thinking that his wife is just dead. You know, the wife that he wasn't willing to sacrifice his own life for is dead. Because Alicia's not saying anything. So what Theo does, he unties Alicia. He leaves the gun behind. And leaves the house. He just leaves. With the knowledge there in that house that Gabriel, when it came down to it, was willing to let his wife die in his place. Which circles back to the reason that Alicia painted that painting of the Greek myth. Because it was basically the same sort of situation. Ish. So again, Alicia's not saying a word. She picks up the gun, turns to her husband, and fires 5 bullets into his face. And one of my favorite lines, I wasn't planning to like be reading from this, but again, a lot happened and I wanted to like make sure that I got it right. And I saw it now. I would never be safe, never be loved. All my hopes dashed, all my dreams shattered, leaving nothing, nothing. My father was right. I didn't deserve to live. I was nothing. That's what Gabriel did to me. That's the truth. I didn't kill Gabriel. He killed me. All I did was pull the trigger. So, she did kill him. But that whole event was the final straw that basically broke her back. Because it started it called back to the trauma of her childhood, when her father wanted her to die in her mother's place. And then to have Gabriel willing to have her die in his place. So, like, when Theo starts treating Alicia, again, she's catatonic. She's nobody in casa. And as she's slowly starting to, like, come around to him, and then you find out this. My first thought was, like, how did she not recognize him? But then I remembered that he had the thing over his face. But then I guessed that at a certain point, she recognized who he was. And she must have started to recognize who he was as he was treating her. And that's sort of why she started to come out of her catatonic state. His presence there triggered her brain and brought her sort of back. So it gets to a point where now Theo knows that she knows who he actually is. And Theo does a little bit of a panic. So he decides, I mean, this guy, he is wackadoo. He is wackadoo. He decides that he is going to drug her back into catatonia. He is going to, I don't believe he intended to kill her. He just wanted to put her back in that state where she couldn't tell anybody. by the way, my shrink is the one who broke into my house 6 years ago and caused me to kill my husband. So he drugs her. And this took a little bit of suspension of disbelief, because in between him drugging her and her slipping into a coma, she writes a last diary entry. Now, it's basically the diary entry. You can sort of see that she's rushing to write it down because she's starting to feel the effects of the drug. Fine, okay, it wasn't an instant sort of overdose drugging thing that happened. Okay, fine. So now he does that, but of course nobody knows that he's the one that did that. They think she tried to kill herself, I guess. I think it was. And he wants to find the diary to get rid of it, because it's in the diary. He can't find the diary. All of a sudden, the diary has disappeared. And so he's like looking everywhere. He can't find it. It turns out she put it in behind the painting that she drew of them and the fire and that. So she put it behind that painting. So when the staff was packing up her stuff, because she's in a coma and they don't think that she's going to come out of it, they find the diary. And so they know that it was Theo that broke into her house and held her hostage and her husband hostage and kind of made her snap and kill her husband, and then I guess showed up at the Grove to treat her. It's explained sort of better in the book, but I'm not sure I really understood why. Theo says that he didn't know that she was going to kill her husband. So once that happened, he kind of became obsessed with maybe his own guilt about it, and maybe if he could help her, maybe that could ease his own sort of guilt about it. Maybe. So we're trying to dissect the motivations of a wackadoo. So, But so Theo is at home with his cheating whore of a wife, Kathy. And he's talking about how, the patient that he was treating overdosed and is now in a coma. And Kathy has no reaction sort of to that, kind of at all. But I think she shows sort of no reaction to it. And I don't know if it's necessarily that she has no feeling about it, because clearly she knows that her lover 6 years ago was murdered by his wife, who Theo has been treating. Clearly, she must be aware of this. She knows Gabriel's dead. Clearly, because she ain't fucking him anymore. So, and I don't know if, like, Theo kind of puts it off as like, oh, you know, she has no empathy and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I kind of took it as she's trying to show no reaction at all so that he doesn't suspect that she has any connection to the woman who was in a coma. So that he doesn't suspect that she was stooping the woman's husband. That's how I kind of took it. Maybe I'm giving Kathy too much credit to actually have cared about anybody. But that's how I sort of took it. So Theo is kind of like, you know, kind of like put off by the fact that she's not showing any emotion about the fact that this woman that he's been treating is in a coma. But before they can really get into it, there's a knock, knock, knock on the door. And it's a chief inspector cop dude. So he comes over, but doesn't necessarily tell Theo why he's there at first. He's just there and is like, oh, you know, Jean-Felix was helping, you know, pick up all of the Alicia's, you know, art stuff and like the painting that she did and, you know, collecting that and stuff. And oh, whoa, surprise, surprise, something fell out of the painting. It was her diary. And so now Theo is like, oh, shish kebab. And the inspector guy tells him that, and he's like, oh, you know, did you read it? Did you read her diary? And then he's like, yeah, like, you know, clearly, you know, she was crazy, you know, and you can't really, like, you know, put any stock into, like, what she said and stuff. And then the inspector starts reading the diary. Theo's not familiar with this diary entry. It's the last one she did. It's the last one she did, naming him as the dude who drugged her and put her in a coma. And naming him as the dude who broke into her motherfucking house and held her hostage. The whole kit and caboodle. And the ending, the ending kind of confused me a little bit. Because this is the last paragraph. As I listened, I looked up at the white clouds drifting past. Finally, they had opened. It had started to snow. Snowflakes were falling outside. I opened the window and reached out my hand. I caught a snowflake. I watched it disappear, vanish from my fingertip. I smiled, and I went to catch another one. And that's the last line. And yes, there was a callback to Theo's childhood when, for a little bit, their father, or his father, leaves to go on some kind of, I'm not sure if he went to prison for like a couple weeks or if he went on like a business thing for like a couple weeks. But for a couple of weeks, they were free of his abusive ass. And it's the wintertime. So he and his mother are outside playing in the snow, and they build a snowman, and it's they make it sort of look like the father, and then they take turns beating the crap out of it, and then they're just enjoying themselves, sort of catching snowflakes, and the ending is sort of a callback to that. Now, when I first read it, I was like, wait, and then he reached out his hand, and then I went to catch another one. My first thought was, wait, are they like, how high are they up off the ground? Did he just kill himself? Did he just jump out the window? I didn't know if he had jumped out the window and killed himself. But then, I was like, wait, are they in a house or are they in an apartment building? And I had to go back and, I think they're in a house. Did he, I had this image of him, breaking the glass and, either, slicing his wrist on the, I didn't know. I thought that he had either killed himself or escaped. Jumped out the window and ran. I don't know. So that was the book. And as I want to say right off the bat that this, for me, I gave this book 5 stars. Even though I found, once we got to that twist, as I was reading, I found myself getting angry. Because I felt like this guy that we've been following through this story, and this guy that we've been living with as he's lived this story, I didn't like the fact that he turned out to be not a good guy. I didn't like that. But, excuse me. Oh, let me show my sister got me this water bottle. Just a girl who loves books. And then that's the back there. It's so pretty. But yeah, I was angry. And I am pretty sure now that I know for myself that I don't like. This was the first unreliable narrator that I ever read. And I didn't like that aspect of it. I didn't like that reveal. Don't get me wrong. The twist was good. Again, it's a 5-star book to me. It was a well-written, well-paced, banana sauce book. I thoroughly enjoyed my experience reading this book, even though the reveal of Theo's character made me angry. And I don't know how to reconcile those two things, because I thought this book was fantastic. But I was angry that the main character was not a good guy, when I believed him to be a good guy. So that was sort of my feeling about it, and it kind of felt like that was only like my personal emotion about it coming into play, as opposed to looking at the book sort of objectively. But again, like, this is a book review, so it's my feelings sort of about the book. So I don't know how to kind of like reconcile those two things. But it just makes me realize that unreliable narrator books are not for me. They could be wonderfully well written, fantastically plotted, but no. Because I don't want to follow, like, when I'm in a person's point of view, like, when I'm in, like, a main character's sort of point of view, I want to be able to trust that main character. I want to root for that main character. I want to follow their journey. I don't want to find out that they've been bullshitting me the whole time. I don't like that experience. So, I know that about myself now. Unreliable narrator books do not work for me. So now, I'm kind of worried that, like, and it's like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna read anything by this author again. I don't know. Because are all his books gonna be unreliable narrators? Because I'm not gonna read them. Because I don't like that. I will say, again, this book is 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it, except for that thing. But it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. The one thing objectively I can say is I felt like the making us think that, oh, it was this person, bringing in like Jean-Felix or Max, who, let's talk about Max for a second, just before we end this. Let's talk about Max. The beginning, he's all like, oh, this bitch killed my brother and blah, 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 and he's all like angry, and then does a complete 180 when he finds out that she slipped into a coma. And he's like, oh, my poor Alicia, my darling, darling, poor sweet Alicia. That, if I'm gonna have a writerly kind of nitpick, that sort of complete change in demeanor made no sense to me. Everything else sort of in the book, like, to me, made sense. Like, I may not have liked what happened, but to me it made sense. That kind of change in Max's demeanor came out of nowhere for me. I don't understand his sort of switch in emotion towards Alicia. I did not understand that at all. But, yeah, the kind of making you think that it was, that Max was a suspect, Jean-Felix was a suspect, Paul was a suspect. There's a word, but it's fallen out of my brain. But there's a term for it. Red herrings. Red herrings, that's it. There were too many of those, I found. But at the same time, it was kind of like, I guess, to kind of keep the suspense of, did she do it, did she not do it? Maybe it was this guy. But I don't know, I just sort of felt like they were sort of like pushing you in like too many kind of different other directions. That's the only like writerly kind of nitpick that I have. Well, with the Max sort of thing. So yeah, those I guess those two. But yeah, I did not mean for this to be this long, but there was no way. I don't know if there are like reviews of this book that are non-spoilery, because how do you talk about this book and not talk about what, in your opinion, either makes it great or makes it horrible, in your opinion? Because that twist changes what your opinion of this book, in my opinion, could be. This might sound kind of controversial or bad, and I don't really mean it to be, but I don't think you can discuss an opinion or have an opinion about this book without discussing the twist. Because the twist completely changes the book. So the book that you're reviewing with talking about the spoiler is a completely different book that you're reviewing without talking about the spoiler. In my opinion, and I don't mean that to be offensive, I just don't think you can review this book without talking about the spoiler. Maybe I should check and see like how other people do it, if they do it without talking about the spoiler. But yeah, that went longer than I intended it to be. My voice is feeling it. But fantastic book. So many thoughts and emotions, contradictory emotions. And again, I don't know if I'm going to read more from this author. I'm going to have to Google the title. I feel like every book now that is sort of in this vein, I'm going to have to check first if it's an unreliable narrator book. Because if it is, no, I'm not going to do that to myself. Because if you take any one of these statements, it would sound like I'm saying that I didn't like this book. I loved this book. This book was bananas and just good. I just didn't like that one aspect of it for myself. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for this week's video, for this book review. Longer than I intended, but we had a lot to unpack. Yeah, so have you read this book? Let me know what you thought of it. If you just like, be respectful, I guess. Like, if you didn't like it, just that's fine. I don't agree with you, but that's fine. But yeah. Yeah, that's going to be it for this week's video. Follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/authorejamie. Like my Facebook page at facebook.com/authorejamie, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.